Hi everyone, welcome back to Brookdale Farm. Well, today we are out seeding wheat and I just thought I would take you through the complete process of putting in the wheat crop. The target planting date, we're growing Scepter wheat, that's the variety. The target planting date for this area is 15th of May. It's now the 14th of June, so we are running very late, but basically we are dry seeding. We've got rain forecast next week, but it is that dry. I normally would not be seeding into ground like this. So this is our crop plan for the wheat done by our agronomist. This is actually last year's one, but it's pretty much the same this year. So the top line, crop variety wheat at Scepter at 90 kilos a hectare. Then he goes on to talk about the fertilizer. So we're putting some urea up front, then MAP, MOP. In this plan it's talking about 75 kilos a hectare. We decided to go a bit heavier this year because it looked a bit hungry last year. We'll be putting on some more urea later on. We've missed, if we come down to the chemicals, we've missed the chance for the double knockout just because it's got so late this year. So we're combining mix 1 and mix 2. We're doing away with the gramoxin or spray seed. And we are not mixing the Secura and Triflurin in this particular one. Later on we'll get down to the spraying out the oats and the wild oats and the broadleaf weeds. It also gives some idea of costs down the side. I usually find that by the time I come to actually purchasing the chemicals and fertilizer, the numbers have all changed, but it gives you a little bit of an idea about what your costs are going to be. When we're planting wheat, we are often planting into paddocks that have reasonably thick stubble from the previous year. The first thing we need to do is burn off the thick stubble. Anywhere that we've had peas or hay cut the previous year or the stubble's just not very thick, we don't bother burning that so much, but the thick stubble tends to just clog up the machinery if we don't get it out of our way first. Ideally then we also want a decent rain on our paddocks. This washes the carbon into the soil, any of the charcoal and the ash. If this is left sitting on the surface, it can neutralise the chemical. So the next job to do is to spray the weeds out. We've got quite a good germination in this paddock. The radish is amazing, it's quite big, and some of it's actually just starting to put out seed. Radish is a really deep-rooted plant, and it can, once it gets a germination, it can get by on almost no moisture at all. With the rain we've had recently, it's shot away. Anyway, so we're going to spray out the radish and the rest of the weeds and put down our pre-emergence. So what are we using today? Obviously we're going to be putting out glyphosate with our ammonium sulfate granules. This is a fertilizer, and when you mix it in with your chemical, it makes the plant think it's being fertilized, and it opens up its pores and takes it all in through its leaves, and it just helps all the rest to get absorbed. This year we are using Secura. Last year was the first year that I have ever used this. You need to be a little bit careful with it, and if you're going to use it, make sure that whatever else you're going to be make sure it is compatible with what you are going to be planting next year. There's a few things that it has a fairly long withholding period on, and you can't plant into the same soil too soon afterwards. Now this is a pre-emergent control for annual ryegrass and a whole bundle of other grasses. We've got bad ryegrass issues here, and it just swamps the crop. Secura works really, really well. We're also going to be using some Logran or transsulfurin. We put this in at a really, really low rate. This is both the Secura and the transsulfurin are a powder, and we also are going to be putting in some Weta 1000. This just helps the chemical to spread nicely over the plant leaves. Now, triflurin is a chemical that has been used around here for a very long time. It hasn't been used on this property that much, but there is general resistance to it in the district, although lots of people still use it. The Secura is the new chemical, and there's not resistance around here to it yet, but it will come eventually, I'm sure. The agronomist recommends that we mix both of these together, and a lot of farmers do. The idea being that the things that are resistant to this one get killed by that one. Anything that's getting resistance to that will get killed by this one. I like to do it a little bit differently. I swap between them. So I've got enough left in this container for this year, and then I will go back to this for a couple of years, and then back to the Secura. I believe that is a good way to stop resistance. They're two different chemicals, so that you use one for a couple of years and then you swap to the other one, so anything that is getting resistance to your first one gets knocked over by the second one. They do say that you get better results if you mix the two of them together. As I don't have any particular resistance to either of them on this property, I'm just swapping between them at the moment. When we are mixing up chemicals in our sprayer, we always want to put our dry ingredients in first, or our powdered ingredients, or wettable granules, as that's what the WG stands for on these. And we want our pump running with a reasonable amount of circulation in our tank. So our pump needs to return some of the water back to the tank, and to keep everything in the tank moving, this mixes the chemical through the water evenly and makes sure it stays mixed up. There are certain chemicals which are very, very sensitive to settling out if there's not enough agitation or water movement in the tank, and then they block everything up in a big way. So we're going to start with our ammonium sulfate granules, and we want these at 0.8% of water volume. So we've got 1,000 litres here. We want 8 litres of the granules. Okay, so we've got our pump running, and if we come and look in the tank, you can see the water sort of circulating around that way. It's a little bit harder to see now I've stirred it up, but that's the agitation we want. The water just keeps circulating around in here. And we're just going to pour these in slowly. If you pour these in too fast, it'll block up your suction, and it can take a little while to clear. But they do dissolve pretty well. Next, we're going to put our Secura in. This goes in at 118 grams per hectare. I've already weighed this out because I wasn't sure if I had enough. This container's got exactly what I need in for this tank mix. So it's It's a brownish sort of powder and it dissolves pretty quickly too. Next, we're going to weigh out our trans-sulfurin. This goes out at 35 grams a hectare. This also helps with the suppression of annual ryegrass and broadleaf weeds in wheat. But it's a fairly cheap chemical and you don't need a lot of it, which is great. So we want about just under half, we want 420 grams. And then the trans-sulfurin goes in too. Next we go in with our glyphosate. Now there are two different strengths of glyphosate, so when you're mixing up your chemicals you need to just be aware of whether you've got the higher strength or the lower strength. And also the cheaper brands require a wetter. This one doesn't, but we're putting some wetter in anyway to go with the other chemicals. There are people who use the high strength stuff and go at a really high rate, up to 2 litres a hectare. Glyphosate is not good for your soil microbia, so I tend to go towards the lower end of the recommendations, depending on what sort of weeds I've got growing in the paddock. If you go at a lower rate, it still kills everything, it just takes a little bit longer. If you go at 2 litres a hectare, it'll be dead by the end of the week. So we're going to put this in next. Lastly is our wetter. There are ionic and non-ionic wetters, and there's also oils. So just be careful that you're using the right product with the right chemical. The chemicals will always specify in their comments somewhere in the instructions which one of the wetters you need and whether in fact you even need one. Today we're using this at 2%, so that's 2 litres into our spray tank. This wetter is basically a soap, and it just breaks down any of the oils on the plant leaves and helps the chemical penetrate better. Give the jug a little bit of a rinse out. And usually I would rinse this with clean water too while I'm filling up, but I'm out in the paddock at the moment, so we'll just rinse it in the tank water and give it a good rinse when we get back to fill up with the next load. It's always a bit hard to get good video while I'm spraying. I really need 2 hands to drive the Land Rover, so it's challenging to hold the camera and drive at the same time. Also, of course, every time you want to go out spraying, the clouds come up and it threatens to rain. We need the rain at the moment, so if it rains on me, I'd be happy, but unfortunately this just blows over. This is where my crop plan differs a little bit from a lot of other people's. My agronomist recommends putting out a small amount of urea at planting time, just to give a little bit more nitrogen. Urea is a granular high nitrogen fertilizer, and we're just putting this out at 50 kilos a hectare just to give the plant a little bit of a starting dose of nitrogen. We'll put more of this on later on. Just because it's easier for me to do, I put it out with the fertilizer spreader. We've got a little CE10 spreader that we use, but you can also mix this with your phosphate fertilizer and put it out with your seeder as well. I just find this way is easier to do it. It's quite quick, so we're just going to whiz around the paddock with this, and then we'll get on the seeder and get going with the main part of the job. So if we come up to the seeder and open the two lids up, this is our seed in here. This is Scepter wheat that we are planting at 90 kilos a hectare. You can see it's a pinkish colour. So this wheat has been graded and coated with a whole bundle of stuff. It's probably got an insecticide, it's probably got a fungicide, it's also got manganese on it. And that gives the plant a starting dose of manganese just as it's coming out of the ground. And that seems to make a really big difference with the wheat in this area. We are quite manganese deficient. So I normally buy graded wheat in from a friend just because it's easy and I can get it and it's got all the dressings on it ready to go. Oops. If we come over the other side here, we are using a 75-25% blend of MOP fertilizer. And we're going out at 100 kilos a hectare. The MAP is the grey fertilizer, and it's a phosphate fertilizer. It's quite high in phosphate. It's got a tiny bit of nitrogen in it as well, just to get things going. But we put a little bit more on too. And then the pink crystals are the MOP, muriate of potash. And the potash is quite important to get the plants growing as well. We normally put a little bit more potash on with the urea, but we're not doing that this year, but often we'll get a blended urea to go out as well. So the potash has got potassium in it and a few other good things. So yeah, 100 kilos of fertilizer, 90 kilos a hectare of seed. And it's time to sit on the tractor for a bit and go around in circles. You can see here just how dry and dusty it is at the moment. Luckily, since I took this video, we've had a bit of rain the following week. I don't like seeding when it is this dry because of the amount of topsoil you lose in the dust, but also if you get wind, you're going to lose a lot of topsoil. They talk about it in terms of tons of topsoil lost per hectare, and when you think about that, that's an awful lot of soil that's disappearing as dust. I hope this video has been useful to you. and that you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye!